Call over the Kearney R-1 Board of Education. Everybody stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Darlene Bailey.
Here.
Brian Ham.
Here.
Dan Holloway.
Here.
John Kern.
Here.
Reese Schweitzer. Here. Susan Mormon.
Here, I think, is where you are.
Helen.
Here. Form being present, entertain a motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
Move that the agenda be approved as presented.
Second. All in favor? Motion unanimously carries. Having no public comment, we have recognitions tonight. First, we have girls wrestling with Lexi Cole. Coach Ward, are you available?
There we are. I'm available.
Okay, Coach, we can hear you.
I can hear you now.
Go ahead and tell us a little bit about Lexi's year.
Sure. Yeah. So we just finished up our awards banquet, our awards ceremony tonight, and I was telling the crowd tonight. 3 years ago, this cheerleader showed up and wanted to wrestle for us in the first year of girls wrestling. So I was like, well, let's see how it goes. And was one of the first few days of practice when the girls were actually in the room, I heard a bunch of thumps and thuds behind me, and I turned around, and this girl is just blasting double legs on people, and I was like, holy moly, who is that kid? And so that kind of was our introduction to Lexi. She wasn't afraid to jump in, and since then she's never looked back. She's won 3 state titles, won her 3rd one this season after 2 quarantines during the season, which really limited her to get into a kind of a groove and find her timing and all that things like that. So she did the best with what she had and missed 4 weeks, I think, of practice throughout the season. Came back, what were we, 18-0? We're heading into 18-0, heading into districts. Ran into the state finals rematch from last year. So at that point, she lost in the district finals, which was kind of a shocker. And true to Lexi form, she came back to the room. We addressed the problems, and she worked on them, and we exacted some revenge. Actually, we didn't even have, well, we got her. We didn't get her at the state tournament because she got upset. So we ended up in the state finals wrestling the girl who beat her, and in dramatic fashion, we were down 8-2, 8-3, and she hit one of her famous reversals and got the fall, and it was pretty exciting. So 3rd state title in 3 years. She's accumulated a lot of big tournament wins. The Wonder Woman, which is a big kind of regional tournament. She's been an All-American at Fargo in freestyle. She's ranked number 5 in the country, and she's just an overall treat and stud to work with. So Lexi Cole here.
Lexi, that's incredible. 3 years. Can you tell us a little bit about your season?
A little about my season. So it was kind of weird. I think I was at practice for maybe 2 weeks, and then I got hit with a quarantine. And then I came back for like 2 weeks, and then I got back out again. And so I didn't really start getting back into wrestling until I think the beginning of the year, like January. So after winter break, I came back and I stayed out of the queue. And that's when I finally got my season going and had some tough matches here and there. And then finally got to, what's it called? Oh, defend my state title.
Yeah, no big deal. No big deal.
Yeah, I finally got to get back to the state tournament. And,
Fantastic. We appreciate what you've done through the district. What's your plans for next year?
my plans. Okay, so this fall I'll be wrestling at William Jewell on an athletic scholarship, and it's going to be their startup program. And I'm pretty excited to put a name out there for them.
Fantastic. My alma mater.
Alexi, I just want to say on behalf of Landon Holloway that you're a beast and you're awesome.
Thanks.
From him cheering with you, from him wrestling with you, you got, so just everything, just a kudos, so. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thanks for having us, guys. We really appreciate the recognition, and I know Lexi certainly appreciates it. So,
Appreciate you all being here. Good
all
luck.
right.
Here.
Thank you.
Next we have HOSA. Michelle Lawrence.
I think we're here.
We hear you. Tell us a
Good.
little bit. This year's state competition with HOSA.
I've got 2 of my 3 finalists here. This year HOSA was quite a bit different than it's been in the past. Both of the girls you see here have been with us for at least 2 years. And in the past, we competed down in Rolla for state, but about 2 days before our state competition last year, we got told no buses from Kearney or the state officer team as well. So we had to contact HOSA and say, your state officers aren't coming and they're competing virtually. And then this year, same thing. It was all virtual. So typically we have probably about 40 kids that go on to state. This year we had 8 that went to the state competition, all virtual. And of those 8, 3 placed in the top 5 at state. And 2 of them are going on to the international competition this summer. So absolutely amazing. The 2 that you see here is Kennedy Jacobson. She got 5th in the state in nurse assisting. And then Allison Landowee got 2nd in the state in human growth and development. And then the one that we don't have right now, because she's actually in Florida, she's one of our KSD Connect students. She is Haley Thorpe, and she got 1st in the state in veterinary science. So absolutely amazing kids, 100% studied all on their own. I had this much input, so I don't deserve any recognition. And as a matter of fact, Kennedy, I have your certificate here, so I'll have it at school for you. Allison, I got hers today at school too. Just the motivation that they have to learn this stuff, because when you're competing online, it's not about the fun trips to Disney World like it is when we're competing in person. It's about they really care about healthcare and learning and competing at a state and international level. So kudos to these girls. They are amazing.
That's fantastic. Very proud of you. Appreciate your representation as a district. So. Can you guys tell us anything about your presentation, whether it's Kennedy or Allison? Kennedy, you're up on our screen at the top. You want to tell us a little bit about what the presentation was?
Yeah, so I studied nursing assisting all year, and I decided to do that because I'm going to the University of Central Missouri next year to study nursing, and so that really was going to help me. And of course, now I feel so much more prepared than I did before doing this competition to go to college, and I know more about what I'm majoring in. So.
Great, fantastic. Allison, you want to tell us a little bit about yours?
I studied human growth and development, and that is mainly about how you mentally develop as you grow older. And I'm just very interested in like the psychology.
One other thing is currently doing. Oh.
Go ahead, Allison.
I'm just very interested in the psychology side of medicine. And so how you develop mentally as you grow older is just very interesting to me.
Are you both seniors?
I'm a junior.
Junior. Okay. Kennedy, you're going to UCM next year, you said?
Yep.
Okay, that's great. No, we really appreciate it. Allison, hopefully you'll repeat next year. Move up another slot.
Allison doesn't have a choice. She's currently our HOSA vice president and has to be our president next year. So she's forced into continuing. The other thing I was going to mention, both of them are part of the Project Lead the Way Biomed program. Kennedy is currently in our biomedical internship program, and she is working with the nurse at Hawthorne Elementary. So 4 days a week, she goes there for a couple hours and acts as the nurse for that building, which is a pretty cool opportunity for her. And then Allison will be doing that program next year. So they're both part of that real world learning internship as well.
Fantastic. Again, I applaud you.
Thank you, Michelle, for all you do.
Thank you all. Have a good night. We have to have a motion. Yeah. Entertain a motion.
Move to dissolve the 2021 Board of Education.
Second.
Please.
Darlene Bailey,
Yes.
Brian Ham,
Yes.
Dan Holloway,
Yes.
John Kern,
Yes.
Bree Switzer, yes. Susan Morman,
Yes.
Mark Kelly.
Yes. You're in charge.
I think we did the oath first.
Vote
Hold the
first.
block
Okay.
first. So Darlene, do you want to stand? Susan, are you ready?
Yes.
And I believe you can raise your right hand. There you go. Do you solemnly swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Missouri, and that you will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties of school director in District Number 1, County of Clay, State of Missouri, to the best of your ability, according to the law, so help you God? I will.
I do.
That's it, we're good.
Excellent. I'd like to take the gavel and call our meeting to order. This time is time to open the floor for nominations for the role of President of the Board of Education.
I'd like to nominate Mark Kelly as continued board president of Kearney School District.
Second. You need it.
Any other nominations? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Darlene Bailey,
Yes.
Brian Ham,
Yes.
Dan Holloway,
Yes.
John Kern,
Yes.
Bree Switzer, yes. Susan Morman,
Yes.
Mark Kelly.
Yes. Now entertain nominations for vice president.
Move to elect Bree Switzer to serve as Vice President of the Kearney School Board during the 2021-2022 school year.
Second.
Any other nominations? Hearing none. Entertain the roll call, please.
Darlene Bailey,
Yes.
Brian Ham,
Yes.
Dan Holloway,
Yes.
John Kern,
Yes.
Bree Switzer, yes. Susan Morman,
Yes.
Mark Kelly.
Yes.
Congrats. Congrats, Mark.
Thank you.
Consent. Move that the consent agenda be approved as presented.
Second. Sorry, yeah. Agree.
He did.
I did second, yeah, I did, sorry.
All those in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Information. Financial.
If you refer to the fund balance report, you'll notice that increase in operating capital, 25%. Biggest contribution to that is additional revenues from railroad utilities and some Kansas teachers' money, as well as a big push to NRL purchase orders for this fiscal year, which resulted in a reduction due to COVID restrictions. Is there any other questions about the financials?
Just like to offer kudos to our business office for all the work they've done on the budget this year. A lot of changes with CARES coding and funding. Also to our budget managers, building principals, and departments for really watching carefully expenditures this year, even more so than normal. And that's all contributed to be able to end the year higher than originally forecasted with our unrestricted fund balance. So that's positive news. And I think as we get down later in the agenda and talk about what the salary committees communicated, I think that presents some opportunities for the board to consider with how we might utilize that that higher fund balance.
Next is current school operation.
Yeah, so we have a lot of really good things happening in the district. Last night, we had our second workshop for our long-range facility planning process. Once again, it had around 50 community members, staff members, in 2 different groups. And last night's workshops, they focused on a review of the priorities discussed in the first meeting, and also took a look at some initial information about current facility usage. And so that's it's good work as we progress into workshops 3, 4, 5, and 6. Then the groups will start doing more future thinking, because the decisions that are being made for our facility plan will impact our school district in the short term and also for years and years to come. So that's important work, and that work continues on this spring. Then Dr. Gustafson, I believe, is right outside. Can you invite him? So Dr. Gustafson is here and will provide an update on an exciting event for us as we have all of our secondary students return to school in a full capacity format on March 29th. So Dr. Gustafson.
So that's gone really well. It's awesome.
Can you come up here closer so that we can get you on the video and hear you online? Put you right into the mix. Sorry, Andy.
All right, sounds good.
Okay.
I'll be able to hear you too. So it's actually gone really well. Having people there, the hallways are crowded. Seeing more engagement in the classrooms, kids are up and around, moving a lot more. So today I asked Bart and Mike at middle school and junior high about what they're seeing, and I asked my department heads what they're seeing, and I kind of got some answers for you there. So at KHS, the teacher said today that at first there was a fear of the unknown, especially among staff and among kids. They just didn't know what they were getting into, and that quickly faded. And it's kind of turned right back to where they were previous. The teachers are making lesson plans in a normal area. It's much easier for them than hybrid because they're used to it. They know what they're doing. And it's a 5-day a week, and they're very easily adapted back to it. They've seen academic improvement in kids. They're there every day. They're back in a routine. They kind of know what's going on.
Again, more engaging activities, students are out moving around. The seniors, not so sure about being back 5 days a week. Most of them had jobs. Most of them were digging into some more real life stuff, but being back with their peers and their friends has been great. I don't know if anybody went through campus yesterday, had a baseball game, had a track meet, had stuff going on in the building. It was packed. It's awesome. The return to normalcy, what, 2.5 weeks? And it seems like we're there right there. So it's been a really exciting time at Kearney High School. Kearney Junior High, Mr. Hopkins said it's great having students back. They're very glad to see their friends. They're really tired at the end of the first week, and I say the high school, they're really tired at the end of the first week, into the second week, and they're really tired after Wednesday right here. It's just used to getting back to it. It's good for our kids who have social emotional needs. Mr. Hopkins said their counselors are very busy seeing kids, and I would say the same thing about at the high school too. He said full classrooms are getting used to after kids are keeping their distance. It is kind of weird walking down the hallway and seeing a full classroom with kids up moving around. You're just kind of like, but it's awesome too. It's really good to see. Mr. Woods at Kearney Middle School said they allowed for teacher interaction with kids and ability to get more out of them and help them. He said many kids were struggling with the return, but it's good to have them back and get them more comfortable into what's going on. He also said staff have done a great job of transitioning back to normal, working with kids. He said the rigor is kind of taking a little bit with those kids. Think about it. I have 2 6th graders, and being them 2 days a week for such a long time, and now getting back into a full 5-day workload, it's been a little bit difficult for them, but they're adjusting and they're doing well. So that's that hardest group, I think, that those kids that are transitioning, either transitioning middle school, transitioning junior high, or transitioning high school that had never been there before. He said there's a lot of emotional issues there since it's been weird since March of 2020. But he's hoping, and so is the staff, that the traditional schedule brings that normalcy back. And I would say that he's seeing that it is. So. Questions on that?
Ellie says there's a lot of kids at the middle school. Being a 6th grader. I said, well, how was it? It was crazy, but good crazy. There's a lot of kids.
There's a lot of kids. It's fun walking down the hallway and having to wait and then being able to scoot through, because usually you're just kind of going through. The senior hallway last year, I'd sit there and watch and it just be completely packed for 4.5 minutes. And now it's completely packed going for 2.5 minutes, right? They're still kind of worried about getting everywhere on time. So the transition's been good. And you know, Mr. Miller, my assistant, told me the other day, he goes, well, it's back to normal, because he had a busy day, the discipline's back. And that's kind of a good thing, because it's just everybody's back to feeling good 5 days a week. And it's been good.
Here it's all going well.
Do what?
Good to hear that it's all going well.
It is. We're really excited. I mean, it was one of those, everybody's a little apprehensive coming back at first. The first day we rolled the drum line through the building. That kind of got some people jacked up a little bit. They liked that. That was good. Get some excitement going back. So it's been good. It's been a good transition.
Appreciate that.
Okay.
Also, looking toward, even though we're just getting kids back at full capacity, we're also looking forward to the end of the year and our seniors graduating. Would you like to provide an update on that?
Sure. So every year we start in first semester kind of planning for graduation. This year we started late November, early December again, kind of still not knowing what we're going to look like. So we came up with 3 different plans, actually 6 different plans. But one of the plans is having a full graduation with all 300 graduates in one ceremony. The next one was having 2 ceremonies, having 4 tickets, 2 tickets, or 0 tickets. So we presented all those plans to Clay County. Came back and they actually, well, before they approved it, we had met at our first senior meeting with all of our senior group. It was hybrid, so we had one day and one the other day. And I kind of put the plans out there. Okay, here's what we're planning on. Clay County approved it, and then I had my class sponsors and my senior studio reps, about 10 to 12 girls, sign up a meeting with me. They wanted to have a meeting. So they came there, and I said, hey, good news. 4 4 tickets, having it in the field house, and they immediately said, what about the stadium? Have you ever thought about the activity complex? And we we're like, yeah, we kind of discussed it, but we're working with my graduation committee. They were concerned that it wasn't going to be as formal. They were concerned that we, no matter what, we're preparing for 2 different ceremonies. So it's going to look a little different. And if you have it at the stadium, everything's going to be have to be broadcast up on the video board. But for those of you who were lucky enough to be at last year's graduation, it wasn't too bad being cast up there. So I took their concerns back to the graduation committee. And our committee was still like, it's just not gonna be as good. So I took that to Dr. Miller and said, hey, here's what our committee has proposed. 1 ceremony, 4 tickets. He's kind of like, pandemic, 1,200 in the field house might be an issue. He's like, can you consider other options? All right, so went back to the graduation committee, talked to them, came up with a couple different options. We talked about different days, but then we decided that the best way we can do it is a lot of kids have already done parties. They've already got stuff made. They've got all their invitation made. So we came up with, it's going to be on May 16th. It's going to be at 2 o'clock. The plan right now is to have it at the activity complex, TDR activity complex, at 2, live streamed, everything there. Kids will get 8 tickets. We'll have, what's that, 2,400 people in the stadium. If on that Thursday, I think it's the 13th, on that Thursday, we're going to take a long, good, hard look at the weather forecast and see what it's going to show. Because that Friday we have our graduation practice, and that's where we actually hand out the tickets. So we have 8 tickets being made right now. We have 4 that are black, 4 that are purple. If the weather is not looking good, then we'll just move it into the field house where we'll have ceremony set up. So if inclement weather happens, we have a backup plan. The plan is to be out at the activity complex at the stadium with 8 tickets per kid. So.
Appreciate all the hard work.
Thank you for all your hard work. Family, yeah, thank you. Wow.
You bet.
Certainly, you have a number of board members who are very supportive of your final decision. I'm sure that didn't weigh heavily.
Well, I did watch last month's board meeting, so I know that.
Yeah, subtlety is not my forte.
I've known that for a while, Mr. Kelly. No, we're excited though. We are excited. And I got a fantastic email from Aiden Foltz who just said, you've made my day. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And she was just so excited for the opportunity, given the opportunity to have a group of people out there. We are planning, we're working with Niles Media to, even if we do have to have it in the field house, that we'll be able to live stream it out on the video board. So if people want to come out there and be with their graduate, and if the weather's nice enough, we're planning on walking them through the stadium, even if we have to have it in the field house. So that's the plan right now. Let's hope for good weather on May 16th. Last year during the parade with the seniors, it was great weather. The year before, not so much. So let's hope that May 16th turns out good. All right. See y'all. Have a good night.
On the other end of the continuum, so we're talking about graduating seniors in the class of 2021. We're also in the middle of a big campaign to get kindergartners for next year enrolled. And so kudos to Mr. Whitehall and also our academic services area, Mrs. Kopp and others. We've been in a big push to get our parents of incoming kindergartners to get enrolled. So one working hypothesis that we've had during the pandemic would be that we had some kindergartners maybe redshirting this year. And so that's something that we've had as a question going throughout the school year. We're going to see big kindergarten classes next fall. So at this point, that's something that we've been watching the data. And so we have about 5 years of data that we've looked at, and we're right in the middle. It's not the biggest group we've ever had. It's not the smallest group. It's about on par with what we've seen as average over the last 5 years. So at this point, we're looking like a pretty standard incoming kindergarten class for next fall. So that's good. We also are working on a really awesome summer school program this summer. Scott?
Yeah, so we have a great plan for summer school this year. We always encourage summer school we want to keep that summer slide to a minimum. Well, this last year we had a COVID slide, right? So we were out of school from March to September. So when we came back and we assessed our kids in September, we had a lot of kids that were scoring pretty low, which we weren't surprised, but a lot of these kids, they hadn't read for 6 months. Our teachers have done an absolute amazing job bringing these kids back up. They truly have, and they've had to do it in a different way than they've ever done before. Our RTI program, response to intervention, has had to work differently because of cohorting. So these teachers, I cannot say enough about the work they've done this year. We don't want to lose any progress. And we still have a ways to go to make sure we're still catching kids up. So for that reason, our summer school this year, it is for elementary, it is going to be, we're going to have 2 blocks, one for math and one for reading. They are going to be very planned out. It's going to be rigorous. We're going to follow a pacing guide, which we have not done this for summer school before. The lessons are all going to be planned. It's really not, our reading interventionists are planning every lesson for the 20 days of summer school to really bring some of these other kids along. We think we can make huge progress in that 20 days. We're also going to have some very fun, exciting enrichment activities. Kirsten Temchek, who is our lead administrator for summer school, she's done a terrific job planning these enrichment activities. We are, our teachers are really reaching out to the parents and encouraging them to put their kids in summer school this year, just so we don't lose any progress. We're also going to have the 2 weeks of Readers Roundup. That is by invitation only, but that is for kids who are still struggling with reading. And then for our middle grades, unfortunately this year we're not going to have a lot of those enrichment programs that we have had in the past. It's so many of them, they did cool educational field trips, but it was really hard to find places that would take kids. They don't, you know, there's just so much still up in the air with COVID restrictions. So we don't have a lot of that, but what we will have, we're gonna have probably around 75 students, 6th through 8th grade, that will be invited to credit recovery. If they have failed more than 2 core classes, then they will be asked to come to summer school. If they show enough progress through this time, then they won't have to participate in response to intervention classes next year. They still might have to if, you know, they're too far behind, but this would give them a chance to catch up. You know, there was talk about retention, but honestly, retention is not the answer at that age. And then in the high school, we will have a fairly large credit recovery group for that. We'll still have our personal finance and health classes that we have offered for several years, in addition to driver's ed. And then we do have some teachers that are going to offer some in-person classes as well for first-time takers. That gives us, last year we started allowing those kids who had completed 8th grade to take high school credit classes to get them ahead. So then they can take advantage of more real world learning opportunities once they get to their junior and senior year. So we'll be doing that again this year.
What's the deadline for people to sign up for summer school?
Well, we put it in there, but we'll keep taking.
Well, I'm very excited about transportation, so as you evaluate transportation needs and that kind of thing.
Yes, and that is gonna be huge that we're able to offer the transportation. Sandy Henshaw's going to do another push for some of her classes, and Ray's gonna do another push for summer school. Right now, we're sitting at about 400 kids for elementary, which, yeah, we've had like 500 in the past, but I think for as early as it is right now, because we always have a lot sign up at the end, so I think we're in pretty good shape.
Is the transportation gonna be for the upper grades as well, if it works? Okay.
Yeah, and we'll do because of the way we're doing the credit recovery for a large junior high group, it's gonna be a morning session as well as an afternoon session, so we'll run that midday class.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Next, we have salary. So, kind of one, salary committee is a varied committee. So we have teachers that represent on this. So we have Ida Cessna that represents KEA. Susanna Smith represents MSTA. Bruce Schweitzer from the grounds and classified staff. Brandon Voigt from the custodial and classified staff. Dr. Jefferson from the administrative staff. Dawn Coonrod. And Dawn needs a huge amount of credit. She sells herself short, but she starts collecting all this data, and she works with a individual over in Platte County, and they kind of help run a lot of the peer studies throughout the metro area. She doesn't give herself enough credit, but when we look at the peer study and the year-to-year comparison, that is all Dawn's doing. And so if you see her, please thank her. I don't thank her enough for what she does for this. So when we start this, we look at our peer study. So we have 11 districts that we compare to. And with that, we review each position in there.
Oh, they're getting you. Hold on.
Sorry. My apologies. So with this, and I know before I went on further, I wanted to make sure that if any board members had any questions on this, from the peer study, we look at our 11 districts, we look at each position and where Kearney falls with all those positions. And then with the year-to-year comparison, we look at when we started this process back in 2011-12, and that is when we passed our levy. So we part of the levy was putting dollars towards salary schedules. And if a position is not in 2011-12, then we would have placed that in that year. For example, when we added in administrative assistant for HR in 2013, then that was placed in at that time. So director of communications, that was placed in at that time. And then also I included peer data for board paid amount as well. With that, what it really kind of shows is our premiums are within our group are on the lower end. In the bottom third is the nice time to be in the bottom third of something with the premiums. But the one thing to take a look at that is we're the only district that doesn't cover that base premium in there. I know that we made some modifications a couple of years ago, but just kind of wanted to bring that to the attention of the board. Is there any questions I could clarify on that data with peer district data or year-to-year comparison?
So on the peer district data, typically when we look at the teacher, we go, PS step 1, MS step 10, MS max. Do we, when we do a shotgun plot as far as where our teachers land, is that the majority of our teachers are in those three, or what do you? I'll let you answer that.
If you did a plot graph of our teaching staff, majority of them are going to be at the master's level and beyond. If you kind of think about the data that we pull in, about 75% of our staff have at least one advanced degree or more. And if you look at, for example, the next 25%, if we did a plot graph, you would have a lot at the bachelor's plus 24. They're getting ready to obtain their degree. We've always kind of in our peers, we've kind of led in years of experience in advanced degree. And it's gone down a little bit. We've gone as high as 82% and as high as 16 years of experience. Right now, I think we're at 75 or 76 of our staff with one advanced degree and roughly just south of 15 years of experience. Any other questions on that data?
Do we know the impact, like you mentioned, the other peer districts and that they cover the premium? Do we know, like from your committee, did we look and see whether or not that if we were to match, what that would do year over year budget wise? Are you given to that?
Yes, and at the end of this, I'll kind of show some pieces of that, kind of so it gives the board an idea of dollars, what it would look like for the role of the schedule, plus if there was a recommendation.
Thanks.
So discussion items from the committee. I think one thing nice I've always heard from salary committee in the variance of the people and the whether it's from the teachers, from the classified staff, administrative, is they want to make sure that everybody has some type of raise. And then another goal would be to get everyone on the salary schedule, because we have certain individuals that we have, for example, directors, supervisors, one of the challenge to get everyone on a salary schedule, so we're not looking at approving this position at X dollars. Minimum wage is, we've talked about this with the board. Next year, it is anticipated that $11.15 will be minimum wage by January 2022, and the goal by January 2023 for Missouri is $12 an hour for minimum wage. So we are chasing that. Not that we're bound by that, but if we look at some of those positions that we are under and we're not matching local people, we're competing for those same employees. In addition, what we're looking at is in our Q policies with both professional staff and classified staff. We've looked at a couple items. One is for a 12-month employee. Currently, what we have is you must work a full year before you ever earn vacation time. And looking at that's a little rough, in my opinion. And we talked about this as a committee, that we could possibly look at reviewing this and saying that they could accrue time based on it. So X number of days per quarter. So over that time, they would earn 10 days over that time. Not that, because what you right now is once your anniversary date comes up, then you get your 10 days of vacation.
Is this something we talked about last year? We talked about this item before? Okay.
I know we talked about personal leave.
I thought we talked about, we didn't have to wait a year, but, okay. Sorry to interrupt.
No, you're fine.
That was, administrative. Okay. All right. Thanks.
On the personal leave, what the board adopted a few years back, the staff get 10 days of leave, 7 sick, 3 personal, and allowed for, if the personal was still in the bank at the end of the year, they could roll over, but not to exceed 5 in a year. As we get into it, some of the language in it, for example, is the word like recreational. For personal leave, if they take a 3-day weekend and they're saying that they're going to a wedding, personal leave, but if they would stop and do some tourist attraction, some of them talked about like, okay, is it recreation, semantics a little bit, but the bigger piece is probably giving the discretion. If we were to do 3 days in a row, that would be principal discretion or supervisor discretion. If it was more than 3-0, they would come to district, but there's kind of some extenuating circumstance so that we're not banking just for a vacation from that sense, but maybe if it was a life event. Your parents have the 50th wedding anniversary and all the family is going. That's definitely something that we wouldn't want to hold that over a staff member from that standpoint. And so those are some things that we looked at that are outside of the salary. And so what our thought process from here would be to take that to MSBA and get their legal to look at the difference in the language. So obviously, after the committee looks at all the data, and then we start looking at things, some of the things, then they start talking about if we were to if we were to do a step increase, but if there's other things to consider. So from the classified side and looking over the years, some things, if we were to look at some different individuals, would be to look at the maintenance and grounds, that they've gotten a step increase, but not something, an overall increase on their salary. Custodial and secretaries. Teachers normally have done masters plus 10, but this year from that standpoint is looking at that last column, that second master specialist to the true experience standard. And as well as the administrator, the experience team. Some other recommendations are occupational therapists, or physical therapists, or social workers. These are positions we've added in years before. We used to contract, for example, OT and PT, and we did a study and showed with the board that when you pay a contracted service, not all those dollars are going to the employee. So there's dollars that are exiting, and it's more beneficial for us to hire our own, pay them benefits, and have them as a KSD employee. A lot of peer districts put them on the certified salary schedule, and the reason being that a lot of these individuals, if you look at from like a social worker or an occupational therapist, they must have a master's degree, and a lot of peer districts have them. They work in the same days as a teacher. And right now, a physical therapist has to walk out with a doctorate. And then also looking to increase substitute pay just to keep up with our peers. Because some of our substitute pay for a classified position, we'll have to look at probably like putting them at step 1 so that we're above minimum wage. So budget impact, when we roll the schedule, so the schedule as is, and we say everybody gets a step increase, to the budget, it's about $300,000. 1% increase is about $300,000. So if we were to look at an increase of board paid amount from 475, what currently is the board approved amount to $500, and the amount of employees that take this, that would be an impact of $90,000. And so I've talked a lot, questions that you have looking at this. Again, these are just things that we discussed that I wanted to present to the board.
You don't have specific recommendations for salary increase?
Well, right now, we worked with Ginger on looking at what is, as we've scrubbed through the budget, scrubbed through all of our employees. We don't have a specific, we just want to see where we're at in the budget. and what then we can bring next to the board. Do we know what our peer districts are doing? We have some that are as high as a 5% increase, and we have some that are in the 1 to 2% increase.
$400,000 equals 1% of our reserves, correct? Of our reserves, not of the, we give 1% increase. So what that would basically equate to is a little less than the full 1% off of our reserve. That 1%.
We have a specific recommendation.
Yeah, so right now, we're getting close to having a preliminary budget for next year. And, you know, as the board knows, we have been looking at being efficient as possible with a number of positions in our district. And so that is part of our considerations in going into preliminary budget. What Mr. Morrison has presented for budget impact is a 1-year impact. And so the preliminary budget has to look at any recommendations for salary for next fiscal year, but we also have to look into, you know, 2, 3, 4, and 5 years out to see how that impacts our bottom line. Of course, the board has had a goal to have our district compensation for employees be in the top of the middle third of comparable districts. And as we look at those peer studies, we have some opportunity for growth there. But that's been a major effort in looking at being more efficient and really monitoring how the budget's going to be constructed for next year, so we can try to allocate as much as possible to our staff and help with the compensation and being more competitive with surrounding districts. So short answer, I think next month will be a very realistic target for salary recommendations in preliminary budget.
The good news is the next one shows at least something financially that's a decrease, so if that's good news.
Insurance premium.
One more thing is like, there's been a lot of work on efficiency take place over the last few months. And as we look at bringing a recommendation on salary increases, you know, the question will be there is as efficient as we can be with our current financial resources available in operations, is it enough to help us reach our goal? And if not, then I think the problem solving continues, and what is the solution to that? And potentially one of those solutions might be consideration of an operating levy issue. So that's one thing that we want to make sure that we are being excellent stewards of the resources and directing those in the appropriate ways to our most important priorities. Our staff is you know, it's our greatest resource. Our staff are outstanding. They do excellent work. And so we want to make sure that we're directing our resources in that way. And then if we can't be competitive by being as lean and mean as we possibly can, then the next question will be then what? And what are our options going forward to be able to provide competitive salaries for ourselves?
Thank you. Appreciate all of our work that you've made and everybody's contribution to our job. Next, we have action items. Insurance benefits. We have a representative from Lockton that will join us. Yes. Okay.
All right, Jeff, do you need me to share the presentation?
Presentation. I think we're okay. We're okay, Allison.
Okay, so I'm sorry, so you guys can see it?
We can see it on our, we don't need it up on the Zoom.
Yeah, we have it on the Zoom, the locked in slides. Yeah.
Okay, All right, perfect. Well, then I'll just kind of tell you what slide I'm referring to, and we'll just go from there. All right, well, Jeff kind of stole all my thunder in that this is all really good news and actually a decrease. So we don't get to deliver news like this very often. So I'm looking at now the 2021 renewal overview slide. On this slide, we're illustrating every line of coverage, the carrier who is the incumbent today, when the next renewal is coming up. So you'll see anything in bold is what's renewing this July. And then the overall final rate impact over there on the right. So an overall decrease. Medical and pharmacy came in at a minus 1.2%, and everything else was either under a rate guarantee or was negotiated down to a 0% increase. A little bit of highlights just into how we got there on the medical and pharmacy side of things. Looking back just into last year, just a quick recap, the renewal called for a 9.9% increase and ultimately landed at a 5.9% increase. And then the initial renewal from Blue Cross this year was a 3.2% increase, and we were able to negotiate that down to a 1.2% decrease. And the $20,000 wellness fund will continue to be provided within that decrease. And then dental, last year was a 0% increase. And then this year, again, 0% increase. Vision was under a rate cap until this July. And the initial renewal came in for the base plan at 5.4%. The buy-up came in at 4.8%. We were able to get VSP to offer a 1-year extension on the current rates. So essentially a 0% increase, no change in rates there. And those will maintain through next July. And then from the ancillary perspective, in 2020, US Able issued a rate hold for the basic and the voluntary life, and that is good until next July. And then the LTD renewal was up this year, and that landed at a 0% increase as well, and was provided with a 2-year rate guarantee until July of 2023. Any questions on this slide before we move on? Nope. Okay. And then here, this is just a historical perspective of the medical renewals specifically. We're looking at the last 6 renewals. You can see there in the blue, that's really kind of put your focus there ultimately on the financials. And you can see you had quite a few good years, 15, 16, in the single digit increases, 17 as well. 18, you got to a single digit increase, but there was some significant plan design changes that ultimately provided that increase. And that was implementing the narrow network that you have today for your HRA. And then the 19 plan year was a little rough there at a 25.6% increase. And then 2020 was again back really favorable. And, this is pretty common what we see. We see typically, 1 out of 5 years is going to be your bad year. And that was probably, we could say 2019 was your bad year. And all in all, other than that, you guys have had fairly favorable renewals. And then getting a decrease for 2021 is fantastic.
I don't know that I would say that 25% just a bad year is really adequately described.
What was that?
Said I don't know that I would say 25% as a bad year is adequate to describe that.
It was not great. Right.
Although
So then,
it's the 1.2 decrease is almost as unlikely as the 25% increase.
yeah, decreases are hard to find. The carriers do not like to give them. So the next couple of slides, we're going to get into the actual rates, what those look like for each of the plans and the 4 tiers. On this first page, we're illustrating where we are today, where we initially came in, and then the final Blue Cross rates over on the far right. You'll see the correlating 1.2% decrease down there in the bottom. Overall enrollment, you can see there too, that's based off of January. So obviously a moment in time, and as that fluctuate, those annual amounts down at the bottom will adjust accordingly. But about 379 members or employees, sorry, that are going into these annual totals illustrated on this page. And then moving on to the next slide, Jeff, I don't know how much you want me to speak to this, or if you want to take this, you tell me.
You can go ahead with it, Allison.
On the contributions? All right. So today the district pays $475 for each tier, the defined contribution. You can see that they're kind of in the middle of the screen. And then what we're proposing and what we're looking at is bumping that $475 up to a subsidy of $500 for each tier, for each plan. And then we also wanted to take a look at, what is it going to look like if we offered a no cost option. So looking at that HRA employee only, you'll notice that $500 went to $537.21. And that would be in the event that the district wanted to offer a no cost option for one of their plans. And typically when we see that for, we'll call it like the base type of plan, the less expensive plan. And you'll say, well, we'll give this to that employee only tier for free. So this is really just showing what that would look like if you were to consider one of those two options. The overall annual impact based off of this moment in time enrollment. So again, January, you can see down at the very bottom, the annual impact to the district if you were to change your subsidy strategy. So increasing up from 475 to 500 would increase by $113,000. And if you wanted to do that along with a no cost option, that HRA narrow network plan, that would be $224,000 increase based off of the January enrollment. And I would say, just as you're kind of thinking on this, from a benchmarking standpoint, we do typically see most of our school districts with some sort of no cost option. So I'm not sure if that's something that you guys hear a lot as you are onboarding or, trying to recruit for positions. Jeff, I don't know if you have anything else you'd like to share.
This page just kind of shows if we did the 500 and what would be the out-of-pocket expense per group. So in other words, if we looked at the HRA employee only, that would what we would consider our base plan, since we only have two medical plans. So it'd be $37.21 out of pocket if they did that.
So
in addition to that number, though, we also have retirement, because that's considered compensation. So it's not just that number. There's 7 or 14%. 14.5% on certified. So roughly 50%. As we consider those things, I mean, we have to be mindful of it. I know that's a business going to take into consideration when we talk about those considerations. Make sure everybody understands the global effects of it as we talk about.
I think it's important that we take a look at it. I wonder, I totally understand the no cost option. I think that's a great thing to be able to look at that as an option for us. But I guess I would like, and I know would be more money, but to treat every employee equitably, and that if we have a no cost option, that cost is the same for everyone, even if they do have a family. So $537.21 towards whatever plan you have. That's treating employees equitably. So, and I'm not saying that I think that's what we should do. I see that as an inequity was presented. So maybe we decided to do it.
Yeah, Allison, go ahead and move on. if you want.
Okay. Here we're looking at the current plan design offerings, just as a refresher for everybody. We've got the HRA plan in the middle and then the HSA plan over on the right. The HRA plan, as I mentioned, is the narrow network option, and that is referred to as the Blue Select Plus network with Blue Cross. The HSA plan is that broader preferred care blue, which is why it's a higher costing benefit. The HRA seeds, just for a reminder for everybody, on the plan is $500 for individuals and $1,000 for families. And then the HSA seed is $1,000 for first-time enrollees and $500 if you were previously enrolled in the HSA plan. And then now we're looking at the dental summary and benefits summary. As I mentioned, this is a 0% increase, so you can see the rates down at the bottom for each of the 4 tiers. Again, no change there. You've got the $50 deductible for single and $150 for family. That is very common. Same with the calendar year maximum, right on benchmark there. And then the $100, $90, and $60 for in-network services. $50 on orthodontia, that is children only, and then that orthodontia maximum is $1,000. And that's the lifetime maximum.
And one thing to keep in mind, we have Blue Cross and Blue Shield for both medical and dental, and this has helped us over time, because sometimes when we've had dental experience a little bit higher than the premium to claim ratio. Since we've had that kind of bundle, Blue Cross and Blue Shield has looked at that to keep dental a lot of times at a minimal to 0% increase. So it's been a benefit to have that kind of bundle.
Here we have the voluntary vision financials. You can see the initial renewals down there at the bottom, the 5.4 and 4.8% increase. And then the final no change to the rates. You have the base plan and the buy-up plan. Some of the key differences between the base and the buy-up is that frames frequency on the base is every 24 months, where on the buy-up it's every 12 months. And then the other big difference is that contact allowance down there, and the other allowances, you've got $200. And then long-term disability, 0% increase. You'll note that down at the bottom. That's with US Able today. It's a 66% benefit, 5,000 monthly maximum. Again, elimination period 90 days, pretty on benchmark, on par with your benefit offerings here. And that is at no cost to the employees. And then just in the appendix, we left the basic term and voluntary life offerings back there. Those were not up for renewal. However, we wanted to just make sure and have the benefit summaries listed out there in rates if anyone was interested in discussing any of that. And these are also with US Able.
Do I have any additional questions?
Motion? You got anything to add?
It's good news that we have when we're dealing with some financial things, that we actually have
a decrease, so that's good news. Especially when they came in, medical side started at 9%. And actuaries looking at that, so we did some pushback. Appreciate Lofton working with that and continuing to work with Blue Cross and Blue Shield to have them sharpen their pencils and continuing to look over the review of that, because really that was, November was a high claim month, but then as we continued to progress into the other winter months, it was down. So we're well under that 80% that they like to look at the medical side.
Allison, is this in part a product of COVID?
The decrease,
Yes.
that's a really good question. And the answer would be no. There's actually a 6% COVID load that Blue Cross has put into this renewal. So what we have seen with our kind of, we'll call mid-year renewals through 2021 is Blue Cross is now having, and all vendors and even our actuaries are having to make COVID adjustments to projections and to claims, and it's all for that deferred care. So what we're actually including in our calculations and Blue Cross is including in their calculations is a load to your past claims because of that deferred care, where we're starting to see people become more comfortable going and getting those more elective type procedures or surgeries. And we do expect to see an increase in claims throughout 2021. And then at this point in time, we are expecting 2022 to be a little bit more normalized.
Thank you, Allison.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thanks for coming. Entertain a motion.
Move to approve insurance benefit rates for the 2021-2022 year as presented.
Second.
All those in favor? Susan? There we go. Thank you.
Darlene?
Motion carries unanimously. I just couldn't see Susan before. Next is board comments. The comment is, I think I want to thank you for re-electing me as president. I'm not certain if that's.
You're welcome.
It's one more year.
One more year.
So, again, thanks everybody for hard work in getting us back to full capacity at all the schools. I know all the transitions are tough. Sounds like it's going incredibly well. Appreciate all that. And to staff who aren't here, appreciate their hard work to allow that to happen. Fantastic news what Andy told us tonight. I can't be happier for the kids and for the district.
We have a lot of good news that's coming out of our building, kids and the education level and all the good things that we're working on. And that's something to be proud of.
I know I got one that's tired every night.
I agree.
Mark, I just wanted to bring up that I attempted to attend the legislative forum on Monday. I had car trouble, so I ended up getting the virtual link and watching a lot of it virtually from a car repair dealership in Boonville. But it was beneficial, and I'm going to go back and look at a couple of sessions that I wasn't able to go to. But a lot of talk, and I don't know how close you all read the MSBA stuff, but a lot of talk about charter schools and vouchers, and I don't think that we talk a lot about that here, but I think it's something that we need to at least maybe be a little bit more aware of. And I talked to Dr. Miller before and after I returned, and I am committed as the MSBA rep, and this being my second term on the board, to be more attentive to these kind of things and try to go to more of the sessions so that we're up on top of things. Because I don't think we have a lot of interaction with our elected folks, and we probably should. I mean, I don't think we really needed to in terms of some things because things go well, but the charter school issue is a big one for our friends in Kansas City and St. Louis, but the session that I listened to really gave me even more perspective on how it's really an issue for us too. And we really need to stay on top of it. It's an
The
issue.
statute, what they're trying to change it, right now allows it only in those counties, and they're trying to make it available in all districts.
That's right. And
Depending on whether you are at risk or even have a single building at risk.
that's right. And then vouchers. And so just a lot of those things that we probably need to be paying more attention to. And I will pledge to you all that I will try to take a little bit more of a lead in doing that as our MSBA rep.
We appreciate your time.
No problem.
Congrats, Bree. You think excited? It's awesome.
Susan, she raised her hand.
Yeah, I just want to thank all the other board members that reached out to me after last month's meeting when I was out with Trevor. Everything ended up just fine, but I appreciate your support during that family emergency.
No. Important dates. April 16th is a virtual school day, day 2 of staff vaccination clinic. May 16th, graduation. May 19th is our next board meeting, and May 26th, the last day of school, early out for students. What's the last day for seniors?
So let's have a senior.
Seniors. Entertain a motion.
Action for a closed session to immediately proceed to regular meeting in May, including any record or vote to discuss items and issues allowable under section 610-021, also known as the Sunshine Law.
Roll call, please.
Darlene Bailey,
Yes.
Brian Ham,
Yes.
Dan Holloway,
Yes.
John Kern,
Yes.
Reese Schweitzer, yes. Susan Mormon,
Yes.
Mark Kelly.
Yes. Thank you all.